best way to learn the classification of anti-hyperlipidemic drugs. So here we have, as we know, that there are total 5 classes. The first one, the HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor, which is also known as statins. So as the name is statins, we can see the examples are Atorvastatin, Simvastatin, and Lovastatin. So it is a common sense that these are just rhyming words of each other. So we can say statins as Atorvastatin. Since this is the A class, so we can remember it as a A. So the example of A class will be A. And since we know that statins is A class, and the example will be according to the class A. तो मतलब हम इसे इस तरीके से याद रख सकते हैं कि स्टैटिन्स जो है उसका राइमिंग वर्ड उसका एग्जाम्पल रहेगा, और एग्जाम्पल जो है जो सबसे पहले हमने लिखा है ए क्लास, तो ए क्लास का एग्जाम्पल भी ए से ही स्टार्ट होगा, इसलिए स्टैटिन का एग्जाम्पल आएगा अटोरवास्टैटिन. It is a very common medication in heart patients. It is given very commonly. We can, even though most of you will find in your house, may God not do such things, but still. So let's move on to the second class, bile acid sequestrants. So the example is cholesterol and cholestyramine. Since this is a B class and the B class is starting with bile acid, so we can remember the B class as the B class is starting with B, and it is bile acid sequestrants, and the example is cholesterol. So we can remember it as that start B class will be start with B for bile acid, and the example of B class will what comes after B, it's C. So the example of B class B will be C, and we have to do the rectification of this cholesterol. It will be easier when we'll remember it in such a way that it is a class B. Class B start with B, and B for bile acid sequestrants, and the example will be what comes after B is C, cholesterol or cholestyramine. Whatever you want to learn, you can learn any one of them. Moving on to the next class, lipoprotein lipase activators. It is also known as fibrates. I will recommend to you that ignore this lipoprotein lipase activator if you are just watching this video one day before or 1 hour before an exam. So remember it as a fibrates, class C as a fibrates. So the rhyming words, one of the example of fibrates is its rhyming word only, which is fenofibrate. Yes, it is written here only, fenofibrate. Okay, fibrate fenofibrate, fibrate fenofibrate, you can learn it as fibrate fenofibrate, fibrate fenofibrate. Okay, so moving on to the next but not the least class, the D class. Since we have to remember this class as very deep class, it is a very deep product quality, या फिर ये बहुत डी लड़के हैं, ये बहुत बेकार लड़के. तो डी क्लास, लाइपोलाइसिस एंड ट्राइग्लिसराइड सिंथेसिस इनहिबिटर. लाइपोलाइसिस लड़के, एल से लड़के, लाइपोलाइसिस कैसे लड़के, डी लड़के. जैसी ए बी सी के बाद डी क्लास आएगा तो डी से याद रखना डी लड़के. तो डी लड़के, लड़के कैसे लिखते हैं, एल से. ठीक है, तो एल से लाइपोलाइसिस याद रख लेना. अब आप जब ये याद रखोगे तो इससे आपको बहुत इजी पड़ेगा. लाइपोलाइसिस एंड ट्राइग्लिसराइड सिंथेसिस इनहिबिटर, यानी कि लाइपोलाइसिस और ट्राइग्लिसराइड को जो बनाने वाले हैं, यानी कि ट्राइग्लिसराइड लाइपोलाइसिस को जो बनाने वाले हैं उन्हें इनहिबिट करने वाली ये क्लास है. तो उसमें क्या है एग्जांपल, निकोटिनिक एसिड एंड नियासिन. सो वी कैन रिमेंबर दिस एग्जांपल विद दिस स्टोरी ओनली. हाउ, लेट मी टेल यू. सिंस डी लड़के जो है वो बहुत बेकार होते हैं. डी लड़के, डी क्लास, डी लड़के का एल, एल से लड़के, और डी लड़के जो बहुत बेकार होते हैं वो एसिड का गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं, एज वी नो. सो निकोटिनिक एसिड, हियर कम्स निकोटिनिक एसिड. निकोटिनिक एसिड का गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं, लोगों पर जो है अत्याचार करते हैं. So we can remember this by this story. D लड़के जो है एसिड का गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं. डी लड़के lipolysis and triglyceride synthesis inhibitor. The example is nicotinic acid. And the next, last but not the least class is E, cholesterol absorption inhibitor. So we can see the cholesterol absorption inhibitor example is ezetimibe. Since the class is E, so we can remember the example will be E. E say example, E say class E. When there will be 3E, it will be ezetimibe, and you can see in the example that there are 3E से class E, example का E and class का E. Okay, it is very messed up here in this page. Let me write it down in a very uh, blank page. Once again I am gonna revise this so that it will be easier for you once again to recall the classification of anti-hyperlipidemic agents or drugs, you say. So the A class will be, we'll write first class, okay, since we have made the stories according to the class. So A class is having HMG. This, since, see students, you have to remember this class also. Either you can write this HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor if you can memorize it, inhibitors, or else you can write just statins. You will get full marks even by writing only statins. So we had make the story about class A, that since is a class A example will be starting from A, and A will be rhyming of statin. So Atorvastatin. Since when you have written this Atorvastatin, you can easily remember other drug names because these other drug names are also rhyming of each other. For example, Lovastatin, Simvastatin. Okay. Moving on to the next class, bile acid sequestrants. We can also say this class. No, this is not the class which I was talking about. Okay, so B for B class, and B class will start from B, bile acid, and since what comes after B, it's C, so example will be starting from C, cholestyramine, or else you can remember cholestyramine. Start cholestyramine. Okay, whatever you want to remember, you can any one of the uh, either cholestyramine or cholesterol. So moving on to the next class, it is lipoprotein lipase. Yes, I think lipoprotein lipase activators. Activators, and you can also say this class as a fibrates. And what is the rhyming of fibrates? It's phenofibrates. I recommend you to remember only this example if you are learning just one day before exam, or you can uh, also remember if you are willing to remember more examples. For example, clofibrate or bezafibrate. Okay, and moving on to the next class, that is D. Since what story we had made regarding D, or okay, let me tell you about the story of C class. Since it is a C class, it starts with fibrates. C class बहुत ग्रेड सी आया, यानी कि मम्मी को लगता है फेल हो गए, और फेल हो गए तो फिब्रेट. ठीक है, सी क्लास है तो मम्मी को लगता है फेल हो गए और फेल हो गए, और सी क्लास है तो एग्जाम्पल भी सी से रहेगा, क्लोफिब्रेट. ओके, and moving on to the last second class, that is D, which is lipoprotein what was that? Lipolysis and triglyceride. Sorry, lipolysis and triglyceride synthesis inhibitor. सो एग्जाम्पल विल बी डी क्लास के लड़के, एकदम डी लड़के हैं तो डी, और तो क्लास शुरू कैसे होगा? एल से। डी लड़के क्या करते हैं? एसिड का गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं, तो निकोटिनिक एसिड और नियासिन। इफ़ यू वांट टू रिमेंबर दिस यू कैन, इट्स अपॉन यू, टोटली अपॉन यू। एंड द लास्ट बट नॉट लीस्ट, ई क्लास will be our cholesterol absorption inhibitor. Absorption inhibitors. Example is, since it is A class, example comes with E, so E is a T, my 3E will be there in the example. Okay, E class है, इसे टीम एग्जाम्पल है, और एग्जाम्पल में स्टार्ट होगा ई से, इसलिए 3 ई रहेंगे। 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, once again 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll start with HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors mechanism of action. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching the whole video.